hoodie up and my mouth shut. Teachers saw me as bright but distant. Classmates barely saw me at all. It was easier that way. No drama. No eyes on me. Especially not when being openly gay in a small town still meant whispers and locker shove. But there was one person who never looked away. Mr. Keller. Aaron Keller, our English teacher. 36, tall, always crisp in his button-downs, but never uptight. His jaw was cut sharp, beard trimmed neat, eyes a calm, stormy gray. He had a way of standing still that made people feel unsettled, like he was studying you and already knew the answers. Everyone respected him. The girls liked him. The guys wanted to be him. He was also married. Wife, kids, the whole American dream. And yet, somehow, I became his secret. It started innocent. Or so I told myself. We'd been assigned a poetry journal. I didn't hold back. I wrote about loneliness, longing, silence. About the kind of ache no one dared to name. I turned it in and forgot about it, until he stopped me after class. "You write like you're trying to bleed through the page," he said, holding my journal like it was something sacred. I shrugged. "Better than saying it out loud." He smiled, just slightly. "You've got a voice. You don't have to whisper with it." From that moment on, he saw me differently. I noticed it first in the way his gaze lingered when I spoke in class, measured, curious. Like he was waiting for something I hadn't said yet. Then it escalated. He'd call me to his desk after the bell. "Mind staying a minute?" Ask about my writing, my plans after graduation. Told me I had potential, that I shouldn't waste it hiding. "I know what it's like," he said once. "Growing up feeling like you don't fit into the life you're told to live." That struck something in me. Something raw. Why was he telling me this? Then came the ride. It was late. I'd stayed after school to help set up for the fall theater show. My ride bailed, and it was pouring rain. He caught me at the front entrance, keys in hand. "Need a lift?" he asked, already unlocking his car. I hesitated, but not for long. The car smelled like mint and worn leather. We drove in silence at first, rain tapping steady against the windshield. Then he asked, "You ever feel like no one really sees you?" I turned to look at him, surprised. "Yeah. All the time." He nodded slowly. "You're not alone in that." When he dropped me off, I went to open the door. He stopped me with a hand, not forceful, just firm, on my knee. His thumb brushed lightly across my jeans. His eyes flicked up to mine. "Take care of yourself, Jace." His voice was soft, too soft for just a teacher talking to a student. And in that pause, right before I stepped out, I knew something had changed. We both knew. The next day, nothing was said. Not directly. But his hand brushed mine when he passed back an assignment. His gaze held longer than appropriate. I felt it every time I walked into his classroom, the electricity, the unspoken tension. It wasn't imagined. Then, during a lesson on The Great Gatsby, he called on me. "Jace," he said, "what do you think Gatsby's really chasing?" I met his eyes and answered, a version of love he was never allowed to have. Something flickered in his face, brief, vulnerable, and gone in a blink. "Exactly," he said. "Desire isn't always about what's right. Sometimes it's about what's missing." The class didn't notice. But I did. And so did he. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering his touch on my knee, the way his voice dipped when he said my name. I knew this wasn't normal. I knew it was wrong. But I also knew something else, something even more dangerous. I didn't want him to stop. The next moment came a week later. Quiet. Subtle. Calculated. Mr. Keller had started inviting me to stay behind after school under the pretense of mentorship. He said he wanted to help me with college applications, but it wasn't about essays anymore. Not really. I remember the moment exactly. It was late Thursday. The halls were nearly empty. I sat across from him at his desk, our knees close beneath the wood. I'd brought in a draft of a personal statement, one where I confessed that I'd never really felt like I belonged in my own skin. He read it silently, mouth tight, eyes narrowing as he scanned the words. "You wrote this?" he asked finally. "Yeah." He exhaled, slow. "You're brave, Jace." I shook my head. "I'm not. I just got tired of pretending." He set the paper down, leaned forward. "Do you ever feel like you're not allowed to want what you want?" That made me freeze. My heart stammered. "I feel that every single day," I whispered. The air between us changed. The room didn't feel like a classroom anymore. It felt like a trap, and I wasn't sure who'd set it. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he stood up, walked around the desk, and leaned against the edge, just beside me. Our proximity was suddenly unbearable. The scent of him, spice and sweat, wrapped around me. "You confuse me," he said quietly. "I tell myself I'm helping you, that it's just guidance. But sometimes I catch myself looking too long, saying too much." I looked up at him. "Then stop." "I can't." Neither of us moved. And then, without asking, without warning, he reached out and cupped the side of my face. His thumb traced along my jawline. Gentle, careful, but charged. I didn't flinch. I leaned into it. That was the first time he kissed me. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't aggressive. It was deliberate. His lips pressing softly against mine, a slow, aching confession. I didn't pull away. I kissed him back, hunger flaring in my chest like a lit match. When he broke away, he looked shaken. His hands trembled. "We shouldn't," he started. "Then why did you?" His voice cracked. "Because I'm tired of pretending too." We didn't speak of it the next day. But everything shifted. He kept his distance in class, but his eyes followed me everywhere. Like he couldn't stop himself. That weekend, he texted me. "Mr. Keller, need help with some grading. You free tonight?" The message didn't hide what it was. And I didn't pretend not to understand. "Me, your place? Mr. Keller, come around 7. Kids are with their mom." It was the first time I'd entered his world. His real world. The place where he was no longer a teacher, no longer someone's husband, just Aaron. Just a man with flaws and heat behind his eyes. His house was modest. Lived in. Photographs of his children lined the hallway. A pair of women's shoes by the door. Ghosts of a life I didn't belong to. He led me to the living room, handed me a drink. Iced tea, his hand brushing mine longer than it needed to. We sat close. Too close. Neither of us mentioned school. Or essays. Or rules. "What are we doing?" I asked after a long silence. He looked at me, expression unreadable. "I don't know. But I know it doesn't feel wrong when I'm near you." "It's not wrong to want something," I said. "It's only wrong if you lie about it." He reached for me then, slower this time, less hesitant. Our mouths met again, deeper, hotter. His hands ran along my back, pulling me against him. Every touch felt like something sacred and reckless at once. He whispered my name between breaths. I heard his restraint cracking, felt his hesitation burn away. We never made it upstairs. We didn't even try. The couch became a confession booth. Our lips, our hands, the only truths spoken. But afterward, he sat back, head in his hands. "I can't undo this," he said. "I can't take it back." I stood, heart pounding. "Do you want to?" His eyes found mine. No. The air was thick with everything unspoken. We both knew the line had been crossed. "I should go," I said, already backing toward the door. "Jace," he stood, voice strained. "I never meant for this to happen." I paused at the threshold. "That's a lie." He didn't argue. He didn't deny it. And as I stepped into the cold night air, one truth echoed louder than all the rest. I wasn't his student anymore. I was his secret. And he had become mine. The days that followed weren't quiet, they were charged. Every glance between me and Mr. Keller carried weight, every hallway meeting loaded with tension that neither of us dared name aloud. Aaron had become a man split in two. In class, he wore his mask flawlessly, stern, articulate, emotionally distant. But outside those fluorescent walls, in the dimness of his home, he unraveled for me. And I kept going back. Again. And again. The guilt? It came in waves, but never strong enough to stop me. Not when his hands knew exactly where to touch. Not when his mouth murmured my name like a prayer he was ashamed of needing. I knew what we were doing was dangerous, selfish, even. But I didn't feel young when I was with him. I didn't feel like a confused teenager seeking validation. I felt seen. And that was intoxicating. One evening, as winter clawed its way into the city, he called me over again. His wife had taken the kids to her sister's for the weekend. I didn't even hesitate. When I got there, he was standing at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled, nursing a whiskey. He looked tired, older than usual. Not just physically, but spiritually worn. "You okay?" I asked, shrugging out of my jacket. "I had a fight with her," he muttered. "She knows something's off." The words hit hard. I leaned against the fridge, arms crossed. "What did you say?" He shrugged. "Lied. I'm good at that now." "Maybe you were always good at it," I replied, watching his expression darken. He set the glass down. "I'm not proud of this." "You think I am?" I snapped, heat rising. "You think I chose to fall for someone I couldn't have?" Aaron stepped toward me slowly, measured. "You haven't said that before." "Said what?" "That you've fallen for me." The words hung between us, fragile and impossible to take back. He moved closer, voice low. "Jace, don't confuse desire with love." "And what are you confusing?" I shot back. "Because the way you hold me, what you say to me in the dark, you're not just using me, Aaron." Silence. He looked like he wanted to speak but couldn't find footing. "I'm not a fantasy," I said. "I'm not a break from your wife or a secret you bury after midnight." He reached out then, hand at my jaw, thumb brushing against my cheek. "You're not," he said. "You're real. That's the problem." We stood there for a long time, neither pulling away. I wanted him to choose, me or the life he clung to. But he was too much a coward for clarity. Later that night, tangled in his sheets, he asked, "What happens when you leave for college?" "I don't know," I whispered. "Do you want this to end?" He didn't answer. That was the answer. I left before sunrise, my chest aching. The truth was unavoidable now. I had stepped into a life that could never be mine. The next week, everything shifted again. Aaron became colder, guarded. In class, he wouldn't meet my eyes. No more after-school invites. No lingering hallway moments. He was trying to erase me, but too late. I was already inked into his story. Then came the unexpected twist. I found a note in my locker. Typed. No name. No handwriting. Just one line. "You're not as invisible as you think." My stomach dropped. I scanned the hall. No one was watching, but I felt eyes crawling over me. That evening, I confronted him. Texted him, then showed up at his house. He opened the door, looking spooked. "Someone knows," I said flatly. His face paled. "What do you mean?" I handed him the note. His hands shook as he read it. "It's not from her." I'd know. Then who? A student? Another teacher? He didn't answer. He was already spiraling. "This isn't just about you anymore," I said. "You pulled me into this. You don't get to go silent now." "I made a mistake," he whispered, more to himself than me. "I let it go too far." "No," I said coldly. "You let it feel real." His silence was confirmation. Regret already swallowed him whole. I turned to leave, pulse raging. Before I stepped out, I said one final thing. "I may be young, Aaron, but I never lied about what this was. Can you say the same?" And then I was gone. The night swallowed me, the cold biting through my hoodie, but I didn't shiver. Something had broken between us, and maybe it needed to. But this story wasn't done. Not yet. The silence between us stretched for days. No text. No glances. Not even the flicker of acknowledgement in the classroom. Aaron Keller had vanished, at least the version of him I knew. The man who once whispered my name against his pillow was now just another adult retreating behind the mask of control. And still, I couldn't stop thinking about him. But the note had changed everything. I wasn't just his secret anymore. I was a liability. A threat to the life he'd built on straight lines and tidy lies. Someone had seen us, or sensed enough to piece it together. And someone wanted him to fall. I spent the next week trying to focus on anything else. College applications, final exams, avoiding the way people stared too long or talked too quiet when I walked past. But paranoia has a sound, a taste. It clings to your skin and seeps into your bones. Then, on a Monday morning, the world cracked open. The school buzzed louder than usual. Murmurs in the hallway. Teachers clustered near the admin wing, speaking in hushed tones. When I entered Mr. Keller's room, he wasn't there. Mrs. Dunley, the substitute, barely looked up as she scribbled instructions on the whiteboard. "Mr. Keller's on leave," she said. "Start your essays." Leave. That word tasted like poison. I waited until lunch and went straight to the office. Asked if I could drop off a form in person. The secretary barely glanced at me before mumbling, "He won't be back this semester." Something had happened, and I knew it had to do with me. That night I walked to his house. It was dark. Shades drawn. Car gone. Like he'd disappeared from the map. I left him a single message. "Me, is this how it ends?" No reply. 4 days, nothing. Then came the knock. It was a Thursday, just after sunset. I opened the door to find Aaron standing there, soaked in rain, his coat clinging to him like guilt. He looked wrecked, eyes hollow, unshaven, mouth pressed into a miserable line. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. I stepped aside without a word. We stood in my small kitchen, the silence between us louder than any argument. "They suspended me," he finally said. "Anonymous tip. Said I was inappropriate with a student." I folded my arms. "They know it was me?" He shook his head. "They don't have proof. But they're digging." My throat tightened. "And what now? You run? You hide?" "I resigned," he said flatly. "Effective immediately." The weight of it hit me like a brick. He was out. Career over. Just like that. He looked up at me, eyes shining. "I lost everything, Jace. My job. My marriage. My kids. Everything I thought I was holding together." He took a shaky breath. "But I didn't come here to make you feel guilty. I came here because, even after all that, I still think about you every morning." I didn't know whether to scream or collapse into him. "This thing between us," he continued, "it started out wrong. Built on secrecy and lies. But it became the most honest part of my life." I nodded slowly. "So what do we do now?" He stepped closer. "That's not for me to decide anymore. You deserve to choose." My heart thundered. I looked at this man, once powerful, composed, untouchable, and saw someone stripped bare. "I loved you," I said. "Maybe I still do. But I won't be a ghost in someone else's story. I won't be a chapter you regret." He reached for my hand. "You never were. You were the moment I woke up." We stood there for a long time, hands clasped between us like a bridge. No promises, no fantasies, just truth. "I'm leaving town," he said finally. "A friend in Denver offered me a place. Clean slate." I swallowed hard. "When?" "Tomorrow." I let go of his hand. "Then this is goodbye." He leaned forward, pressed one last kiss against my forehead, gentle, reverent. Like he was saying sorry and thank you and I'll never forget you all at once. And then he turned and walked out. Just like that. I stood at the window, watching him disappear into the rain. No dramatics, no second thoughts, only the quiet knowing that some stories aren't meant to last forever. But they change you. They teach you. They burn themselves into your bones. And even if he became just a memory, Aaron Keller would always be the man who cracked me open and showed me everything I was capable of feeling. Even if he couldn't stay.